Hello and welcome to another episode of the D1 Daily Podcast. Burkie and Roons here with a special guest, the great Bradley Smart, hashtag the Whiz Kid, the writer of ACC Extra on the D1 site. Bradley, it is great to see you. The mustache looks glorious as always. How are we feeling, Bradley? You had to play hurt recently. Like this is the fake season is no time to sustain an injury. How are we powering through that?
We push through. A lot of fluids, a lot of tea, electrolytes, and we're rounding into form at the right time. I'd say ramping up.
And the lip sweater is the lip sweater? Are we rocking that? Is that a fake season thing? Is that here to stay? Where do we find ourselves in that?
You can thank Roons. It's a kind of a permanent part of my introduction now, so I think it's going to stay for a while.
Okay.
Burkie, right. I want you to know, for Bradley and Joe Healy have inspired me for squeeze play this year. I'm considering doing a playoff beard or mustache. I've never had facial hair as an adult, not since college when I really wasn't an adult. So yeah, we'll see. But I don't know. It's
Bradley, before we throw you the first pitch here, could you weigh in on adult or adult?
Adult.
Thank you. It continues to be 99% adult and 1% adult.
Yeah,
I hear adult a lot.
I'm not even 1% coachable in that area. However, that's coming out right now. We're gonna play it out.
One more. GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Thank you. Bradley, we are we
connect
together.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Yes. Except the fact you use a droid. Which I don't know if I'm supposed to say that into an open mic, but
it's all right. I'll just get more hate. Hate.
2 out of 3.
Way.
That's right. Aaron Fitt infected him. The great Fitzy. So Bradley, let's start here. I'm going to give you guys some ACC storylines, and then we're going to talk through these things. So this is interesting to me. Like, the ACC is clearly the second best league in our sport, right? The SEC and the ACC have really been the two dominant leagues, and that's no offense to the other leagues, but that's just the way it's been. However, the ACC had this corpse that they were dragging around for a long time, that no national title since 1955. And then Virginia did it in 2015. But here we are again, like with this, and the coach that did that, Brian O'Connor, is no longer in the league. He's at Mississippi State. So I bring that up not to be critical of the ACC. It's an awesome, awesome baseball league, and only getting better, by the way. But when we did the preseason rankings, which are out on D1 Baseball this week, the ACC had 8 teams ranked in the top 25. That's not a small number. Like, only the SEC had more with 11. But I had a really difficult time saying, okay, this is the best team in the ACC this year. Like, I felt like there was a lot of good teams. I couldn't find out, like, okay, unless you're willing to put your chips in there on Georgia Tech, but they just, they really haven't been, I don't think they've been to a super regional in 20 years, let alone Omaha. So here's the question I want to pose to you guys. A storyline for the ACC this year to me is, which ACC team can win the national title? What say you on that, Bradley?
Yeah, I mean, you sent that question so I could prepare for it. And it's one that, I think about a lot, where you look at that 2015 Virginia team. They finished 7th in the ACC. They went 15-15. They got hot at the right time. That's kind of been the league, as of late. Like, you look at last year, it was a dogfight. Like, you go into the final weekend and there are 5 teams that can finish first. And then you end up getting the lone representative is Louisville, who was 10th in the regular season and looked like they had a ton of flaws. So it's hard to make a list and put it in order because, like you said, you look at those 8 teams in the rankings, and you can even expand out to 3 or 4 after that, where it's all of these teams have some things they do really well. They also have questions, and answering those questions for some is going to be easier than others. Like, I look at Georgia Tech, our highest ranked ACC team. They're 5th, in our preseason poll. That position player group has a chance to be the best in the country, like, full stop. And the questions that Georgia Tech often gets is, okay, can they pitch enough? And I think they've answered a lot of those questions at times in the last few years with sort of the changes they made on the staff, Matt Taylor, Jason Richmond. But again, like the broader perception of them is, are they going to throw enough? Like, will they have enough talent on the mound? And I think they do. I think they're with that position player group and what they're capable of. If they can reach that on the mound, I think you start with them. But then you start throwing teams in like North Carolina, NC State, elite pitching staffs, Florida State, Link Jarrett's consistency there, as he's gotten settled in and been able to absorb a lot of losses and just keep producing talent. You get to Louisville coming back with that star power at the top. You have the Clemsons, the Wake Forest, Miami. I think it's one of those things where you can't necessarily say this team's going to run away with the ACC, but you can say, hey, these 8 to 10 have a lot of good things going for them, and that's the reason they're regarded so well, in the top 25.
Got it. Burkie, go ahead. What's your take on this?
Well, my take is, as I look at Georgia Tech, I am incredibly intrigued to watch them play, but similar to probably Mississippi State and Auburn, it just maybe Mississippi State would be a cut above Auburn and Georgia Tech in that maybe you're not sure how the Mississippi State pieces fit together exactly, but you feel like the talent is in the house to get the whole thing done, especially if Jack Bauer is what he could be. I look at Auburn and Georgia Tech, and we'll just focus on Georgia Tech specifically relative to the ACC. And I'm just like, where's the high end pieces that could come together? And I'd love for Bradley to interject here, but like, I don't see the potential for those high end pieces that would be necessary to get to Omaha and win the 3-2, 4-2 games that we know you have to win. Like, where are the bat missers on that staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have them. I think there's and I mentioned this, like the perception is like, and last year's regional did not help Georgia Tech's case when, the slugfest they got into. But Tate McKee is a proven Friday arm, good arm. Looked at his best at times down the stretch last year. Dylan Loy's a Tennessee, an SEC transfer that did it in the SEC pretty consistently. And then they do have those guys that, the Charlie Wilcox, the high-end freshman talent. And then wherever they put Mason Patel, he finds ways to get out. So I think there's a lot on the mound. And like, if you look at them last year in the ACC, I think they finished 4th in ERA in the ACC. And there's some really good pitching staffs in the league. And I think that kind of gets lost when you look at the postseason success, which is fair. Like, getting out of a regional has been very difficult for Georgia Tech, even with the offenses they've put together. But I do think the staff they have, the upside that some of these guys have, like Justin Shattuck, the Rutgers transfer, kind of ugly numbers as a starter last year. They might have him as a closer type role who's coming out of the pen, upper 90s, good, like a better fit for him. And I just think I have a lot of faith in that group. The pitching staff in particular, like the coaching staff and sort of what they've done over the last few years at Georgia Tech. So I think the upside there is higher than people give them credit for. But I totally understand where the questions come from. But I think Ramsey even said it best, where he's like, at a certain point, like, that just needs to be left behind. And we need to do that. We need to prove it, but we feel like we can. So I found that pretty interesting in terms of their sort of preseason outlook.
Hey,
what I would say, what I'm worried about Georgia Tech is this is what I believe about them. I believe they're so talented. They're going to host a regional, and it's going to be warm, and that place is going to be popping, and they have a pitching staff that I don't think misses bats. And all of a sudden you become it. You know what it feels like? It feels very Clemson-ish. And all of a sudden you've got a ballpark where it's like, oh my gosh, Mike Rooney and I are on squeeze play and he's calling it Williamsport. I didn't say that. I'm saying that's what Rooney's going to call it. Okay. I didn't say it. And that's what I just have this vision in my mind of, was it a couple years ago when Auburn went in there and beat them at home, now they got the type of team that can win those games 12-10. But that's just what it feels like. And maybe I'll be wrong. It just I worry that pitching staff can't miss bats. I will say, if I was picking one team, it would be Louisville, because I think Louisville's position player group is not Georgia Tech, but close. And I think their pitching staff has more that's proven. And while they're missing their biggest bat misser from last year, I do think there's more of a track record with Roger Williams of figuring out a pitching staff that can get them to Omaha. Now, they haven't won the last game, but as you said, Roons, nobody in that conference has a coach that has. But if I was handicapping, I feel like I'd say Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really high on them. If you look at how they got to Omaha last year, like they went into Vanderbilt and pitched at an incredibly high level that frankly came out of nowhere, because the last time we'd seen them at Durham, when they ran out a bunch of arms, they couldn't get outs. They were walking guys. They just couldn't really do anything. But that year, the number of underclassmen that made 20 plus appearances and are back, and then you sort of pair that with an Ethan Eberle, he's going to go in as their ace, and he made 20 appearances last year as a freshman and looked great and pitched at the highest level. So I think they're one of those teams that people look at a lot of the other teams in the ACC and start, going, oh yeah, I love North Carolina, I love Florida State. And it's easy to forget, okay, Lucas Moore, Zion Rose, Tate Davis, Alex Alicea, that's a quartet that few can compare to just in terms of star power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, let me steer that. I'm glad you did that, Burkie, because Louisville, I'm with you. Dan McDonald's 6 trips to Omaha. There's enough talent and pedigree there that, if they get hot at the end of the year, they're going to be a handful. I can't unsee Louisville being in Omaha last year. And I know, like you said, Burkie, they didn't win it clearly, but it's they looked the part, man. That's some dudes walking around out there. They didn't trick their way to Omaha. What about Florida State, Bradley? And I bring them up because I just can't picture in my mind Link Jarrett not winning a national title. I just think he's so good at the whole thing. He's not just some wizard on the X's and O's, even though I think he is. But man, Trey Beard they get from FAU. I don't know. I feel like Florida State's a program with a lot of inherent advantages, and nobody's better prepared to take advantage of those things than Link Jarrett.
Yeah. And Florida State's one too, where it's part of the reason they might get knocked a bit to start this year is just because you list off the guys they lost, like Jamie Arnold, Gage Harrelson, Alex Lodice, Max Williams, Drew Farrow, Joey Bellini. Those are stars in the league. But I do think they reloaded really well. And there's obviously a lot of faith in Link Jarrett and the ability to develop talent there. And you have Miles Bailey, anchoring that lineup is a good place to start. And then, you bring in the talent they brought in on the mound is the thing I'm most excited about, because Florida State last year, one of their flaws was they didn't have a lot of guys. They had that weekend rotation. That was great. Then they had a few guys they trusted, really trusted at the end of games, but they didn't have a lot of depth there. There was a lot of kind of up and downs with the bullpen. And you go out and you get a Gabe Nard, a Cole Stokes, you bring in Bryson Moore from Virginia, and it's okay, there's a lot of depth in these arms. And if this sort of transfer group hits in the lineup, that's an immediate team that could make a deep run.
Burkie, you got any thoughts on the Noles?
Yes, I'm with you. Link Jarrett feels like a national championship coach at some point in his career. Miles Bailey, for those listening to us, he might be one of the most fun. I think I was going to say funnest right there, but isn't that what KP always makes fun of me for?
Yes.
Help me out there, Roons. Okay, yes. But I like to say funnest, so I'm just going to say he might be one of the funnest players in college baseball this year. It's going to be must-see TV. Of the 10 farthest / hardest home runs hit this year, he'll have 5 of them. That'll be my pick. And he's also going to strike out on par with probably a national leader pace. So, but he will be as scary a person as there is in the sport when he steps in the batter's box. And that's something, right? Also think Gabe Frazier is one of those players that I spent a lot of time talking to Arkansas about last year. And I'm just very interested in what, we talk about what a high-level coach Link Jarrett is. Gabe Frazier is a high-level talent. Now, don't look at the stats. He didn't do a ton, but you watch Gabe Frazier take ground balls, Roons, and you go, well, that looks different. I mean, I'm talking about 3 ground balls. You're like, who's at shortstop? They're like, oh, that's that freshman Gabe Frazier. Well, why doesn't he play? Like, well, it's complicated. Well, okay, now he's got a fresh start with a world-class head coach who's also a world-class infield coach. And so just circle Miles Bailey is must-see TV. No one person fills up the batter's box quite as well as he does in the sport. And then maybe Zach York for LSU. But then Gabe Frazier as an infielder to watch that could end up really making a name for himself this season.
Love it. All right, Bradley, here's the next topic for us, the next storyline. The ACC has this very interesting cluster of what I will call get over the hump teams, like some teams that just feel a little stuck in their current stature. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. Like, sometimes you're stuck at good instead of stuck at great. But let me give you these teams. Georgia Tech, we talked about a lot, so we pass on them. I want to do this. I want to leave room in my own brain that Georgia Tech, as good as they were under Danny Hall, they could be different under James Ramsey. The truth is they could be worse, but I think they're going to be better. And so I just need to, I need to leave room for that. Clemson is just, you can't get past the trauma that they've experienced in the postseason, right? Like it's just, it feels like it oozes out of every pore of their program right now, just like one heartbreak after another in the postseason. Wake Forest feels they had that unbelievable team in 2023, and it just, I love this roster. But I have a little PTSD of being a fan of Wake Forest program and them, getting tripped up a lot in regionals. 2024 really sticks out for me, where it's like 3 top 10 picks and, basically go 0-2 in a regional. Miami's another one. It's been 10 years since they've been to Omaha, and this is a historic brand in the sport. And then Stanford, Bradley's the other one where, man, I wish they had more coming back on the mounds. But this is a program, they went to Omaha 3 straight years from 21 to 2023. That was not 10 years ago. That was 5 minutes ago. So anyway, let me leave it there for you.
Yeah. I mean, you could spend an hour talking about any of those teams. I think I'll start with Clemson just because that is the one that, this fall and into, the spring, every time like one of us, either, me or Aaron Fitt wrote the fall report, there's a sort of profound shift in how Eric Bakich is talking and how he wants his team to be talking, where it went from, Omaha or bust, like they have the hats with Omaha, like all these different things, to now it's don't talk about it, just be about it. And I find it really interesting where it's like 3 straight years, 44 plus wins, 3 hosting regionals in a row. You get bounced at home and, you get bounced in regionals twice. You lose a heartbreaker in supers. That is scar tissue. And what I find really interesting about this Clemson, the fall and everything is like, they're really trying to build a pitching staff that, has more power and has more, ability to kind of match up better. Cause that was part of the issue last year. Like the offense wasn't incredible. And the pitching staff kind of had its ups and downs, and they still figured out how to win all of these really close games. And that just always bites you, it feels like. And so I'm really interested to see what Clemson looks like. I think they added a lot of impact, like power guys that could really help in the lineup. And I think the pitching staff's going to be better. So what that means for them come postseason time will be really interesting. But yeah, I think Clemson's one of those where it's just, they've won so many games in the regular season the last 3 years. That's like, okay, they're probably going to do that again. But what does the postseason look like for them?
Burkie, you did that super when they played Florida. You have a take on Clemson?
I have a take. I mean, my take is super stable program with a world-class coaching staff. It feels almost impossible to think that they won't win 40 games again. I think the challenge with Clemson, I said it about Georgia Tech, these programs that are in the South and have these ballparks that are really small, like if you don't have, I'll just say it, if you don't have Tennessee's pitching staff from the last 5 years, where you have a bunch of guys that miss bats, it feels really hard to be the home team unless you can then completely outslug whoever comes in your yard, which is not exactly how those teams have been built either. You know, it's just so interesting. A little bit like the Texas Vanderbilt conversations we had with Joe Healy, Roons, where it's like such a compliment to their program and the stability of the program that they've been able to win 44 games 3 years in a row. But then you look at the pieces and you're like, can they overcome whoever they get sent, which are always these red hot teams in the postseason? You know, that's who's in it at that point in time. And so, you know, I look at the pitching staff, and Bradley, please speak into it, but like, it looks like the pitching staff that they're counting on pitching the vast majority of their big innings are all returners, correct?
Yeah. And I mean, starting with Aiden Canuck, like that is they don't lose his starts. He's one of the more consistent Friday arms in the ACC. The issue last year was they really didn't have a third guy, and they struggled at times to get a consistent second guy. So it'll be interesting. You know, you bring back Drew Titsworth, Talon Bell's taken a step forward. What those two look like is probably going to dictate how this season goes. Because you need weekend pitching. Like that's you can't overwork. You can't staff game, like constantly staff it. So I think the trust they have in those guys is high. And then I think, like I said, like the offense should be better than last year. Because you know I think they had 21 comeback wins last season, and they were something like 10-1 in one-run games. Yeah, like that's
it was a lot. It was kind of Texas-ish, right? There were you're just probably not going to do that again. But you know, guys, I feel like a lot of like Wake, the year Wake had the best team in the country. Think about how many swing and miss arms Wake had. Okay, you're going to win that regional with that ballpark. You can't let them hit it. I'm sorry. I've sat in that Clemson place for multiple. I've been there for multiple regional defeats, and I was there for the Super. Roons, you and I are always talking about low oxygen meter on squeeze play with that group, and you know, you brought up Wake Forest. Who was the other squad you brought up besides Clemson, Roons, and the
Miami and Stanford?
Yeah, I don't know if you could say stuck where you're at with Stanford. You know, Stanford feels pretty volatile based on what you said, where they were and then where they find themselves today. But Miami feels a little stuck on kind of, I know they were one win away from Omaha, but boy, it took a magical run to get there, right? And it's, other than that, Miami feels like they've been in a pretty similar place for a very long time. Bradley, would you say, is there hope that they are out of that? I know Cuvée is arguably the most talented player in the conference. Is there hope Miami can parlay that run at the end into something a little bit higher from a standard standpoint?
Yeah. And it's really, it's funny you mentioned, you know, the one win away from Omaha, because they did not start well last year at all. Like you look at how they started, I think they were 2-7 to open ACC play. And they were, you know, after winning 27 games the year before, it was like, is JD the right guy for this job? Like that was a real thing that was popping up on like Miami discussion boards and stuff. And they just got hot, and they really hit on, you know, they overhauled the roster a ton. They were like, okay, we're going to get guys from anywhere, basically. And I think they hit on a bunch of guys that are now, you know, back and are in that lineup. Like you look at a Jake Ogden, you look at a Max Galvin, you look at a Derek Williams, like they proved they're talented, you know, ACC caliber, like good players. And I think the way they can reach, you know, more consistency and, you know, start to build and make those deep runs is developing their pitching. And like AJ Siskar and Tate Darius, those are two really good examples of, you know, let them impact the team as a freshman. Now they're back. So I think Miami has a lot of momentum. I think they plugged holes well. I think Wake's just really interesting because, 4 postseason trips in a row. I think that's the longest streak in the Tom Walter era. So they're getting there. And I think what I really like about their offseason, they lose Corey, but they bring in Eric Neeson. They bring in a new lab coordinator. And it's like the focus is we have the arm stuff. We've got to be consistent. Because, Blake Morningstar was really the one consistent arm last year. Like Hayden LeFew was down the stretch, but, he had a bad first half. I think the arm talent they have there is potentially unmatched. Like, you go down the list, it's Morningstar, Cam Bagwell, Chris Lavonis, Duncan Marston, a really highly touted group of freshmen. If they're consistent, like that staff's going to take them a long way. And it's like you said, it's guys that can, miss bats. Like all of them can miss bats. So I think Wake's in a good place, even with, the bumps of last year. Stanford's one they're recruiting at a high level. And they're stacking good classes. So I have a lot of confidence in Stanford. I don't know if this year is going to go as well as they want it to, just because really they're really limited on the mound of guys that have done it. And there are a lot of questions of, okay, can you move this guy that did well as a reliever to, your number 2 starter? Like stuff like that those are big asks. But I think they're accumulating talent that if they can hold on to, unlike, the Volchko, Scott transfers, if they can hold on to that talent, they're going to be fine. So I think Stanford's definitely a weird few years after those Omaha runs, but I think they're in a good place overall.
Should be interesting. The league is so fascinating always. And it's, it's just like every year the SEC and the ACC they're in such a dead sprint in our sport. It's so fun to watch, right? They've got so many good players and it's, it's going to be great. I'll end us on this storyline. We don't need to comment on it, but 2 interesting coaching changes, like Corey Muscara takes over at Duke. And I would say that's 100% a rebuild. They lost almost their entire roster. So in fairness to Corey and to Moose and that staff, like I've got lowered expectations this year because it really is a rebuild. And that's because Chris Pollard has gone to UVA. And, I think this year's UVA team is interesting. I'm not sure how much I trust them on the mound, although Chris Pollard's got a history of making more with less on the mound. But I do, you've got position player stars and Eric Becker at shortstop and AJ Gracia and, Harrison Didowick did, hit 20 home runs 2 years ago. So the question of Virginia, but I just think that was a home run hire for, it's easy to forget Chris Pollard's taken 4 teams to super regionals in the last 7 years. Like it's been an incredible run. So, and I'm going to be critical of Duke. I don't know. I'm not sure how interested Duke has been in being great at baseball. Chris Pollard has forced them to be great at baseball. Basically said, like, you're doing this, just try not to handcuff me too much. So anyway, Bradley, thank you very much for this. This was fun. If you're listening, people, catch all of Bradley's stuff at ACC Extra. The smartest man in college baseball. Bradley should really be working for NASA. He just chooses to work in college baseball.
There's a lot of us that do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Me too. All of us adults. And I like that you have an Android, Bradley. That's like we coached Casey Myers, who Burkie played against in college. He only got 1 B in college. He was our catcher, 2001 Pac-10 Player of the Year. He got a B in a class, I think, on purpose because he just wanted to get people off teasing him about being so smart. That's why Bradley got an Android, Burkie. Yes. He's just trying to get everyone off that this kid's perfect scent.
Yeah. Just like us, the rest of us feel better.
Yes. Hey, listeners, now is the time to get your sub to D1 Baseball. Kendall Rogers, the great Big Tex, he's at the sleep at the wheel. He's got a tweet up pinned that if you check out with a code of D1 Fall 25, D, the letter, the number 1, Fall 25, you get 30% off. Normally the coupons this time of year are like 20% off, 25% off. Kendall's just still in vacation mode or holiday mode. Jump on that coupon right now for 30% off. If you sign up for ACC Extra, you get SEC Extra. Bradley's stuff on the website is awesome. Bradley, you're doing great stuff on the ACC Etc. pod with Darren Vaught. The preseasoning interviews, all the coaches are awesome. And Burkie, just so you know, Bradley is also the IT team at D1 Baseball. If you have, yes.
I knew that. Yes,
very good. Bradley, thank you, sir. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Very good. All right, everybody. Be good. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Daily Podcast.